Catching more flies with honey, it's the Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. The Housebroken Medicare podcast. He sips tea with his pinky finger extended. It's Medicare expert Doug Jones.
Well, guess who's here? It's your buddy, Uncle Doug. I'm your Medicare expert for today. I'm hoping that my Canadian nephew, Drew McMillan, told you that already, but just in case he was late to work today, I will repeat that. I am your Medicare expert, and I'm here to help you feel confident and comfortable with the idea that Medicare is going to provide excellent health insurance protection for you. And when that time comes for you, I'm going to be able to tell you exactly how to negotiate Medicare so that you wind up with the very, very best health insurance protection at the very, very least possible cost. Now, how do I tell you all of this? Well, I suggest that you read my book, Medicare for the Lazy Man. The current edition is 2025, and ironically, we're still in 2025 as I speak these words. So what we do is we write the book when the government releases its statistics for the following year, and that book hasn't been written yet because the government hasn't yet released its statistics for the following year. So the most current information we have about Medicare is contained within Medicare for the Lazy Man 2025. If you go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com, you'll be able to find the paperback version of that book, very reasonably priced. And if you prefer to have the Kindle version or the Audible version so you can listen to it, you can do all of that at amazon.com on the same page. It's all on the same page. Just go to the search window, type in Medicare for the Lazy Man 2025. Type in that year. Otherwise, you might wind up with an older edition of Medicare for the Lazy Man. And then I want you to be understanding of the fact that you're going to need a Medicare drug plan. So I wrote a book to help you figure out how to get your own Medicare drug plan, the lowest cost possible. That's going to be named Medicare Drug Plans, ironically. Medicare Drug Plans, a simple DIY, do-it-yourself guide. And if you want just to know how to enroll in Medicare, I've written a book for that too. It's the smallest book you've ever seen in your life. It's the cheapest price that Amazon will let me charge for a printed book. But the Kindle version is only $1. The regular print version, which has about 34 pages, is priced at $4.60. And either way, you're going to find valuable enrollment knowledge in that book, which is entitled Medicare for the Lazy Man, Bare Bones. So remember that, Bare Bones will tell you exactly how to enroll in Medicare. And in fact, there are other important things going on. Today is Armistice Day. I haven't really come into the 21st century yet, I guess, but Veterans Day is the more common current appellation for this date in history, November 11th. But back in 2018 or 1918, that's when the war to end all wars ended on the 11th day of the 11th month, the 11th hour, and I suppose the 11th minute. Would you agree with that, Randy? Is that your understanding of that history?
Yes, it absolutely is.
And that makes it a long time ago. All the time growing up, that was just earlier this century, we had a big war, and then they had another big war about 20 years later. But now we can say that's over 100 years ago. Time really flies, doesn't it?
Time really flies when you're having fun.
Yeah,
I'm
and
telling
even when
you.
you're not having fun, it still kind of flies.
So, as you know, I always have a few, fun things to say at the beginning of each episode. How high are you today, given the fact that you're back in Cave Creek?
Well, let's see. I haven't smoked marijuana in quite some time, so I'm probably not as high as you would like to place me. I'm guessing that you've got an elevation in mind that's going to startle me. So lay it on me.
The reason I always tease Doug about this is that He lives in a section behind Cave Creek up in the mountains that we affectionately call the Nosebleed Mountains, which is the
Yeah.
home territory of the Nosebleed Indians. Well,
Yeah. They might
anyway,
be almost extinct by now.
yeah, well, bottom line is they learned to live really high up in the mountains, so they didn't need a lot of oxygen like you do because you're from a lower altitude
I
normally
am.
during the summer, and it takes you a while to get used to it. So
Yeah.
right now his eyes are all bugged out because he doesn't have enough oxygen, but he's trying, and it's going to take him another week or two to get used to it. So I'm going to put him, normally I announce how high he is on the end of the episode, but I'm going to give him a break today. Okay, 6,000 feet.
Oh my God, it's going to be like a tropical heaven. That's incredible. So I can actually look up at the Nosebleed Indians. And the other problem that we have, besides the Indians looking for beer in my house while I'm out of town, is the Wolverines. If you'll
Yes.
recall, there were Wolverines prowling around and goat poop. How did that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. Well,
I don't.
you never know what you're going to find up on the Nosebleed Mountains.
Well, thank God you were here to watch my property for me while I was gone to Pugsleyville, the flatlands of Illinois.
Yeah, the low ground.
Yeah, how low can you go?
How low can you go?
Well, Randy is going to look at the checklist that I provided for him today, and he's going to go, "How come you're not talking about any of the stuff that you listed on the checklist?" And that's because I'm calling an audible. There was a news story that hit the wires just this morning, and I got hold of an article that I am pretty happy about. We'll see, but it points up a couple of important things. First of all, the federal government was going to try an experiment on Medicare that would have made it more like Medicare Advantage plans, which we don't like, we don't recommend, and we don't want anybody to be victimized by. One of the reasons that people should stay away from Medicare Advantage plans is because in a Medicare Advantage plan, you very often have prior authorization rules, and the insurance company will use those rules to delay or deny treatment that you and your doctors might feel that is essential for your well-being. Now, how are you going to do a recovery from a disease or an injury or something like that if your insurance company will not pay to have that necessary procedure performed? So that becomes a huge problem. Now, it was always one of the beautiful things about regular Medicare. There is no prior authorization except for some weird thing like liposuction. I don't know. I knew once what it was, but it was so weird I didn't have to remember it because nobody ever has that procedure. So the government has decided they wanted to try a 5-year test of some prior authorization rules on some kind of esoteric procedures that aren't performed very often, and they perceive that there's a lot of fraud in this one area of Medicare, so they thought maybe prior authorization would help the situation. Now, the problem here is that once the nose of the camel gets underneath the edge of the tent, that's the start of a camel living with you in your tent and refusing to leave. In this case, that experiment would probably lead to a permanent prior authorization procedure for regular Medicare, thus deteriorating the user-friendly nature of regular Medicare, original Medicare. So once again, my surprising allies, the Democrats, have risen up in an effort to try to defeat this experiment before it gets off the ground, and I couldn't be happier. I'm not a Democrat. I don't side with them on anything except for this particular effort to maintain freedom in the Medicare arena. So the headline article here is House Democrats introduce legislation to kill the Medicare prior authorization pilot. 6 Democratic House representatives introduced legislation this month to stop the upcoming Medicare prior authorization pilot, which is the acronym is Wasteful and Inappropriate Service Reduction. That's called WISER, and it's WIS, small e, capital R. This program would implement prior authorization for traditional Medicare across 6 states starting next year. The government said the pilot would leverage companies' AI tools to expedite reviews. House Democrats have been vocal over their concerns with the AI use, and the program has also received a backlash from the American Hospital Association. One sticking point: the government will pay third parties based on averted expenditures. So, in other words, they're getting subcontractors to come in and implement this pilot program of prior authorization, and their compensation will largely be based on how successfully they manage to avoid anybody getting treatment, whatever these treatments are that the program will cover. So, as a doctor and a former chief medical officer of Sacramento County, I've seen how harmful prior authorization can be when it delays or denies necessary care for patients. And this is from a doctor, Representative Amy Berra. She's, of course, a Democrat. I don't know why more Republicans don't step up to the plate on this situation. But anyway, this Democrat, Amy Berra, says the wiser model takes that a step further by financially rewarding companies for denying care through so-called averted expenditures. That creates a dangerous incentive to put profits ahead of patients' health. These decisions should be made by doctors, not by algorithms designed to cut costs. We should be working to strengthen Medicare, not layering on more red tape that threatens to access timely, high-quality care. Some of the legislators involved with this bill also backed legislation last year to reform prior authorization in Medicare Advantage. So a couple of Democrats that I don't particularly like most of the time introduced a resolution opposing the program that's coming up next year also. And it's interesting that I can be aligned with people that are normally my political enemies, but in this case, I think they're right. Preserving the freedoms that we have in Medicare is the one thing that makes this program a success. And if it becomes necessary to save money, which I always applaud, let's not do it on the backs of people who are covered by Medicare. Now, the other thing I like to do at the beginning of every episode is take a page out of the book entitled Your Medicare Benefits 2025. If you wanted to read this book, you could do so by going to the internet and typing that into the search window. And you would eventually, your printer would probably get worn out printing off all of the pages of that book. It's over 100 pages long, as I recall. So the subject that we're going to study today is sleep studies. So Part B of Medicare covers Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, and Type 4. Those are Roman numerals, by the way. Sleep tests and devices. If you have clinical signs and symptoms of sleep apnea, then that's what Medicare Part B will pay for. What about the costs? Well, after you meet the Part B deductible, that's $257 this year of 2025, then you will pay 20% of the Medicare approved amount, but it says right here, unless you go to Doug Jones to get a Medicare supplement plan, when you first get into Medicare would be the ideal time to do that. And then you won't have to pay that 20%. It won't just go out the window. It won't go to waste at all. Things to know: Medicare only covers Type 1 tests if you get them in a sleep lab facility. Your doctor or other healthcare provider must order the sleep test. So for more information, visit medicare.gov/coverage/sleep-studies. And with that, they didn't offer an explanation as to what the difference was between Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, or Type 4 testing or treatment. So you're going to have to find that stuff out on your own. Or if you already have sleep apnea, I bet you already know what those differences are. So plowing through the things that we like to talk about during the podcast episodes, let's see here. We've got a series of things that I've been asked to talk about, but this seemed like a timely article. It's going to have little relevance to those listening now because as we speak, the negotiations are underway to end the longest government shutdown in the history of the United States. I personally like government shutdowns, except for the fact that they always spend more money than they saved shutting down part of the government because they reimburse everybody for all the money they didn't get while the government was shut down. Shutting down the government should be kind of a permanent thing. It only affects 17% of the government, but I would like it if they could just shut the whole thing down or major parts of it and start over again. That would be an interesting way to maybe improve the cash flow in the United States. So this little article says how the government shutdown affects Medicare. And I wish I'd seen this article earlier in the shutdown, but nobody knew it was going to last 41 days. Medicare coverage will not stop during a government shutdown, but people can expect to see changes to certain benefits and delays in customer service or paperwork processing. Boy, many of my soon-to-be clients have seen that happen when they apply for Medicare, and the applications don't seem to get the kind of timely treatment that they used to get. So the article says, here's what you need to know. The U.S. government shutdown, which started October 1st, has halted many federal services, leaving millions of Medicare beneficiaries wondering how this will affect their health care benefits, their health insurance benefits, it is, not health care benefits, and their coverage in 2026. Here's the good news. Your benefits will continue. However, telehealth services have changed, and some administrative services could slow down. You may notice longer wait times for customer service or delays in paperwork, but not in your actual care. That's the important thing. Here are a few frequently asked questions about how the shutdown will impact Medicare. Will Medicare still operate during a government shutdown? Yes. There's a lot more to that answer, but I think the important part is that, yes, it will continue to operate. Number 2, could my doctor's visits, hospital care, or prescriptions be affected? For most people, care will continue as usual. Doctors, hospitals, and pharmacies will still be paid through existing Medicare funding streams, but if the shutdown drags on, some claims processing or paperwork could take longer than normal. So, number 3, will there be any delays in getting help from Medicare, like customer service or claims? The answer to that is possibly. While essential staff remains on duty, call centers and administrative offices often operate with fewer employees during a shutdown. Number 4, does a shutdown affect Medicare Advantage or Part D plans, that's prescription drug plans, differently from original Medicare? So the answer to that is Medicare Advantage and Part D drug plans are run by private insurance companies that contract with the federal government. These companies have their own staff and systems, so there should be no interruption in their services. Number 5, will this change anything about current Medicare open enrollment period? The answer is no. Number 6, if the government shutdown continues for weeks, which is what has happened, what could happen next? Well, the answer to that is even though Medicare benefits remain unaffected, federal staff who handle payments to providers, data systems, and appeals may face backlogs if the government shutdown continues. Over time, this could translate into slower service and delayed updates to regulations or reimbursements. Number 7, what can Medicare beneficiaries, that's you, what can Medicare participants do right now to protect their coverage and stay informed? Keep copies of your Medicare card and recent correspondence from your plan. Okay, well, you should do that anyway. To review coverage details and ensure contact information is up to date, log into your Medicare account or contact your local independent Medicare agent. Hey, that's me. For questions, you can still call 1-800-MEDICARE, but expect potential delays. If you have urgent concerns about coverage or prescriptions, contact your health plan directly or your independent Medicare agent. And that's about it. So I will tell you that that's the bottom line there is be not concerned, because a government shutdown doesn't really screw up anybody's life to a great extent, except maybe some guy that has a concession like a reindeer ride out in Yosemite Park. That kind of thing you might have problems being able to enjoy something like that during a government shutdown. And then we have more timely stuff. And this timely stuff was encouraged by our favorite stalker. We have a lot of stalkers. Stalker Susie is our favorite stalker currently. And when I did a little blurb about concierge medicine not too long ago, Stalker Susie wrote me and she said a couple of very nice things about her efforts. And then she said, as long as you're talking about concierge medicine, how about expanding your explanation of what it is and how it might work with Medicare? so that we can have a clearer understanding as to whether we should be concerned about it or whether we should welcome it. And she said, we live in Massachusetts, and my husband and I might actually have to face the concept of concierge medicine with our doctors if we want to keep our current highly qualified medical specialists in our, in our corner, I guess. So concierge medicine, here's what I did. My new source of information is AI. I go to ChatGPT and I pose questions in a way that they are the little robots that live inside the ChatGPT are forced to answer. And if I don't like their answer, then I keep prodding them until they come up with an answer that I do like. Didn't have to prod too much this time. Definition of concierge medicine. It's also called membership-based medicine or retainer medicine. It's a healthcare model in which patients pay a monthly or maybe an annual fee directly to the physician or to the medical practice in exchange for enhanced access, personalized care, and other services not typically available in standard primary care. So here's a quick overview. Patients pay a retainer fee, typically anywhere from $1,200 to $5,000 per year, depending on the practice and the level of service. In return, they receive the following benefits: same day or next day appointments, longer visits, often 30 to 60 minutes. What do? Play cards? 24/7 direct access to their doctor via phone, text, or email, comprehensive annual physicals, preventive and wellness planning, and care coordination with specialists and hospitals. Payment model. Under the payment model, the membership fee covers enhanced access in some services. Some concierge practices bill insurance for standard medical services, while others operate entirely outside the insurance connection. So those are referred to often as cash only or direct primary care. So the pros and cons. For patients, the pros are easier and faster access to care, more personalized attention, better continuity and preventive focus. The cons are higher out-of-pocket cost, and you may still need insurance for hospital or specialist care. That is imperative. That's not may. You will still need insurance because if something bad happens to you, an accidental injury or an illness, an emergency that happens while you're traveling, I don't think your concierge is going to be there to take care of you. So for doctors, the advantages are smaller patient panels, often 300 to 600 patients versus 2,000 plus in a traditional practice. Less administrative burden, greater job satisfaction. The downsides for doctors are financial risk when you're starting out and limited accessibility for lower income patients. So related models, direct primary care and hybrid concierge practices offer both traditional and membership-based options. Would you like me to compare concierge medicine versus direct primary care? I said, here, answer this question, oh wise one. How does concierge medicine work with Medicare? And the AI said, great question. It's always kissing my butt. Great question. Concierge medicine and Medicare can coexist, but how they work together depends on how the practice structures its fees and billing. So here are two common concierge models and Medicare. Number one is a concierge practice that still bills Medicare. And most concierge practices fall into this category. How it works: the annual membership or retainer fee covers non-covered services such as same-day or next-day access, longer visits, direct phone and email or text communication, comprehensive wellness programs, coordination of specialist care. The doctor still bills Medicare and possibly a supplemental plan, well, I hope so, for covered medical services like office visits, lab tests, and chronic care management. So the rules are the concierge fee cannot include or replace anything Medicare covers. The practice must submit claims to Medicare for covered services unless they officially opt out of Medicare, and patients still pay premiums and copays as usual under Medicare. So this is legal and compliant as long as the membership fee only covers services that Medicare does not cover. Now, the other option is a concierge practice that opts out of Medicare. Some doctors completely opt out of Medicare to simplify billing, and here's how that works. The physician signs an opt-out affidavit with Medicare. The patient and the doctor sign a private contract agreeing that the doctor will not bill Medicare and the patient will not seek Medicare reimbursement. Patients pay the full membership or service fee out of pocket. So here are the implications of that arrangement. Medicare won't pay anything for care from that doctor. The patient can still use Medicare for other providers who have not opted out. So the advantage here is it's fully allowed, but patients need to understand they'll pay entirely out of pocket for that doctor's services. So here are the key legal points. The membership fee cannot cover Medicare covered services unless the doctor opts out. The Office of Inspector General has issued guidance warning against concierge fees that double bill for Medicare covered services. And most compliant concierge practices clearly spell out these items in writing: what is covered by the membership, what's billed to Medicare, and what the patient's responsibility is. You want to have all of that in your contract that you sign with the doctor. Here's an example. Dr. Smith, I'm glad they didn't use Dr. Jones. Dr. Smith charges $1,800 a year for a concierge membership that includes direct cell phone access, annual wellness planning, and same-day appointments. When a patient visits for blood pressure management, Dr. Smith bills Medicare for the visit. The $1,800 does not cover the visit itself. It covers the enhanced access and the time. So that, I hope, helps everybody understand the concept of concierge medicine, because it is coming down the pike, I believe, unless big changes are made in the way doctors are compensated. I've always said, and I continue to say, doctors should be compensated to such an extent that they're happy in their work, and the medical field attracts the most qualified people, because I want my doctor to not only be happy, but I want him to be the best person around for the job. Now, I've had a piece of paper here that's getting kind of old and smelly, but it's a reference to an event that happened a while back. And of course, who draws this to our attention but Arizona tourists, Dominic Regina. And Dominic wrote back and said something. He had a correspondence with, I don't know how he gets Cave Creek News, but he said he just saw this article about Cave Creek resident Barry Morphew. Looks like he likes to hang out at Harold's. Signed, Dominic. And let's see, Randy responded, and this is back in July. Thanks for sharing this story. Certainly an interesting read. I guess you never know who you're going to find hanging out in Cave Creek. Sonny Barger, founder of the Oakland Hells Angels Club, lived here until his death in 2022. His hangout was the Buffalo Chip, which is right across the street from Harold's. He was good friends with the owner of the Chip, who was a retired Maricopa County deputy sheriff. Larry, the owner of the Buffalo Chip, was Sheriff Joe Arpaio's chief deputy, and Sonny Barger was Larry's best man when he married his last wife. And I don't know if Randy remembers all this correspondence. At the moment, he and his wife, Margaret, are in Le Havre, France on a cruise, but he saw the email come in last night, so he spent an hour or so reading additional information he could find on the case. As you mentioned, Harold's was his hangout. I recognized his trailer court sign from other pictures I found during the quest. And then, did I say something here? No, this was Dominic replying to Randy. He said, apparently they have the guy back in custody so we can go out safety again. Oh, no, this is me, I think. Apparently they have the guy back in custody so we can go outside safely again. Randy is right about Sonny Barger, but he didn't give him enough credit. Barger was the guy who elevated the Hells Angels from a bunch of troublemakers to an international crime cartel. In his later years, he and other angels of his age preferred to avoid confrontation, unlike the younger generation they had recruited. And then I said, speaking of Barry Morphew, I will try to remember to tell the story of my visit to Angola prison in Louisiana one day. Thanks for the heads up. So that was my response to our friend, Dominic Regina, who keeps us abreast of important goings-on in Arizona and Cave Creek. So Randy has, I'm guessing, a vague memory, but who's going to remind me to tell my Angola penitentiary story? Somebody's got to
I,
do that, and we don't have time to talk about it.
I will remind you in the near future.
All right, I'll be looking forward to that reminder. I'd like to tell the story.
And guess what?
I don't know what.
We're out of time.
Oh my God, how does that happen?
I don't know. Well, I know how it happens, but there doesn't seem to be any quick fix to it.
No, I've never seen a fix to it at all. Well, anyway, if we're out of time, then you better do your magical closing of the episode routine before before the world comes to an end.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, grab your pencil, people. This is probably the most important email address you'll ever have. It is dbj@mlmmailbag.com. That's how you reach out to Doug when you need him. Number one on the list. Remember, Doug is licensed nationwide to help you with your Medicare supplement planning. Check out the website, medicareforthelazyman.com. We would appreciate it if you would drop a review for our content as you wander through the internet. It's important because we want to win again over the travelogue people. Last but certainly not least, thank you for joining us today. You could have been anywhere else, and you weren't. You were with us listening to Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. And you probably weren't tracking your time, but you just spent about 32 and a half minutes with Doug Jones, the anti-insurance guy, originally from Oklahoma. No more. He's back at home up in the high ground behind Cave Creek, Arizona. We already talked about the altitude, but I'm going to turn over the final word to Doug so he can sign it off for us today.
Yeah, ironically, I'm wearing my Joe Arpaio t-shirt today, former sheriff of Maricopa County. Just a righteous dude in my book. That's why I proudly wear his t-shirt. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. It's wonderful to have you with us, and I'm looking forward to your joining us again very soon for our next episode. Until then, bye-bye.